So let's talk a little bit about the Peru elections. This is a really interesting thing that came across my radar over the past few days. So in the election, you have Pedro Castillo is the leftist, and you have Keiko, however you pronounce it, Fujimori is the right-winger. Now, Fujimori is actually the daughter of the former dictator of Peru. It's funny, that information is not being shared in every article about this election, even though I think it probably should be. She's the daughter of the former dictator of Peru. Now, as of right now, as I'm talking to you, Castillo, the leftist, is ahead. He has 50.2% of the vote to 49.8% for Fujimori. Now, Fujimori's out there in a very Trumpian way claiming voter fraud. As of now, there's zero evidence of voter fraud. A lot of people are scared because it looks like perhaps we're in another Bolivia-like situation where the U.S. would intervene in one way or another and try to say, oh, no, it's fake, and no, Evo Morales didn't win, this is nonsense. And so now, they haven't done it yet to this point, to be fair, but a lot of people are watching nervously, hoping that doesn't come to fruition. So if everything stays as is, and by the way, 97% of the vote is counted, actually might be up a little since then, but if everything stays as it is, Castillo ends up winning, and so that would be, the leftist beating the right-winger. Now, give you some more information on the candidates. Castillo, his slogan for his campaign is, quote, no more poor people in a rich country. No more poor people in a rich country. He's, I'm going to butcher this word. Everybody knows I don't know how to say this word. He's a rural teacher. Rural teacher. He's a farmer, and he's a union leader. Now, Fujimori, big time in favor of the free market, capitalism, and privatization. Her father serving a 25-year sentence for corruption and 25 killings. Under her father's reign, they did forced sterilization of 270,000 indigenous women and 22,000 men. Fujimori mostly has support in Lima, the capital. Castillo has most support in rural areas. Now, it's a little difficult because the Lima results came in first, and then slowly the rural results rolled in. I really can't say that word. rural results came in. And so it looked like Fujimori was way up, and then Castillo surged. It's actually very similar to what happened in Bolivia. And actually a little bit to what happened in the U.S., although in the U.S. it's reversed in that a lot of the pro-Biden areas came later, and Biden ended up winning. But, I mean, it's common in politics. You count certain areas first, one candidate leads, and then you count other areas, and the other candidate surges, and that's basically what happened. Now, Castillo is I love this. A lot of this sounds like it's contradictory, but apparently it's all stuff he's said. Castillo is a Marxist socialist who rejects communism. He works with right-wing populists on labor rights and pension benefits. He's a, quote, far-left unionist. He's the son of illiterate peasant farmers, and he has, quote, vowed to nationalize Peru's vast mineral resources and expel foreigners who commit crimes in his country. So, here, let me throw up on screen another thing about Castillo that's fascinating. So he was asked in an interview, would you legalize abortion? Quote, absolutely not. Euthanasia? I don't agree either. Gay marriage? Even worse, family first. Legalize weed? Of course not. So this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this election. These views seem incredibly heterodox in the context of U.S. politics, because usually if somebody's on the left, it's assumed that on the social issues they're sort of down the line lefties. To be fair, some of this stuff like euthanasia, as far as I know, there's no lefty politicians in the U.S. calling for, that's physician-assisted suicide, calling for that. But virtually every other one, it's assumed like it's a given that left candidates or lefties in the U.S. support all these things. So this seems really, really heterodox. But I guess my point in doing this segment is to say the context differs massively around the world. And there are polls in Peru, specifically on the issue of abortion, but maybe even a lot of the other issues that are here, where Peru is like the country in the poll that was the most against abortion. So that is something that's, spans the political spectrum in Peru, that virtually everybody's against abortion. So it's just fascinating to see. Here you have a leftist who, at least as of right now, nominally won, and he's economically really, really far left. He's like, basically nationalize everything, give the workers all the power, right? So economically, hardcore left-winger, but then socially, I wouldn't even call this moderate. I would say he's just right-wing on a lot of these social issues. So, listen, you can determine what to make of this. You can determine, if you were in Peru, what would you do? Would you do effectively the lesser evil vote for the candidate who's the leftist on economics but bad on the social issues, or would you just sit out the election? And I guess another reason I'm doing this segment is to sort of get you guys more interested in this idea of defining what you think your red lines are for supporting a candidate. You know what I mean? Because you're never going to find somebody who agrees with you across the board 100%. It's just not going to happen. You could be the most hardcore viewer and lover of secular talk. You're never going to agree with 100% of what I say. It's just not possible. We're human beings. So you need to ask yourself, like, what are my red lines? What do I view as, like, I can't abide that, you know? And how many issues does somebody have to be super dead wrong on, in your opinion, for you to say, fuck it, I'm not going to support them? Or are you completely pragmatic on these issues where you say, I will always take the lesser evil because the lesser evil is less evil, and less evil always beats more evil. So if I have a gun to my head and I have to pick between the two, I'm going to pick the better one. You know, I honestly, I believe all of these positions are defensible. Me personally, I have my own views on it that I've expressed time and time again. But I do think there's solid arguments for anything, any position on the spectrum here, of doing the lesser evil vote or not doing the lesser evil vote, or what even counts as lesser evil. But there you have it. So you have hardcore economic leftists who are actually very socially conservative. And I mean, listen, when I go through the list here, I think he's wrong on all these things. Legalize abortion. Of course I'd keep abortion legal. I believe in Roe versus Wade. Overall, I'm a moderate. I have some issues with late-term abortion, but before that, all systems go. And like over 90% of abortions in the U.S. are not late-term. So I'm pro-abortion. Euthanasia, physician-assisted suicide, I'm in favor of that. Gay marriage, of course I'm in favor of that. Legalizing weed, of course I'm in favor of that. So, you know, huge disagreements. But, you know, I guess the counter-argument that some people would make, and this is not dissimilar from what people were saying in the U.S. election, people would say Fujimori's a fucking fascist. So you got to pick that over fascism, right? A lot of people said that about Trump, too. Trump's a fucking fascist. What are you going to... I know you don't like Biden, but it's not nearly as bad as Trump, right? So you can see a lot of the same debates and the same issues and the same questions arise when you talk about these things. But either way, I find the whole conversation fascinating here. I really do. It's really interesting to see these heterodox views from a U.S. perspective when they aren't actually heterodox in the context of Peru. And I think the conversation overall, again, is really interesting because you get to think about what are your red lines, what are not your red lines. Are you pragmatic? Are you principled? Are you whatever? So anyway, there you have it. It looks like he's holding on. And by the skin of his teeth, that is. 50.2% to 49.8%. But we'll see how everything unfolds because, again, you just got to hope for not another Bolivia-like situation.